Hello, everybody. It is Fernando Labastida here once again in another great interview for Martechify. And I want to welcome you to these Martechify sessions. Martechify is a connected community, a connected learning community of marketing professionals within the Fortune 500 and other types of companies. It's a community where we share ideas, best practices, and success stories so that we can help people to stay current in today's fast-changing MarTech landscape. Okay, and Martechify is your resource for connecting with other professionals, advancing your skills, and boosting your MarTech game. We're really excited to have Chris Perez here today with us. He's the Director of Product Marketing at Perforce. Chris, how are you doing today? How are things in beautiful, sunny San Antonio?
Hey, thanks for having me. Just doing well. Still sunny, still pretty bright, so it's nice.
Okay, fantastic. So, great. Well, why don't we just get right into it? Since this is a session about MarTech, marketing technology, I wanted to ask you something that it's a burning question that I have is, what are you seeing coming down the pike in 2025 in terms of trends for MarTech?
Yeah, I can just speak to kind of things that we're looking at here at Perforce, or at least, things that we're kind of moving towards just based off how the industry's changed, and especially in the age of AI. So looking at it, like I manage a content marketing team. So I manage a manager and two writers there. And, our, philosophy shifted a little bit with that. We are a large company. We do have a lot of history, it's 25 years. So we do have a lot of the top terms and a lot of brand equity and value to those terms already. With AI overviews, changing in terms of the SERPs, along with Reddit changing in the SERPs, even for things that we rank for at the top, right? Our value is reduced due to those being more prominent to the user. So adjusting to that is a trend. I imagine that's going to be something that takes shape for everybody, right? Whether they're new or mature in the field, but yeah, having to build a strategy with those things in mind. Something that we do and that I think serves us well is put a strategy that's customer-centric, human-centric at the center of it, telling customer stories at the center of it, and I think that those are things that resonate well for things that are going to be video, things that are going to be discussions in community threads, and of course things that would probably get summarized and put in those AI overviews. So that's how we look at it. And for, over all those trends, I think it's just, kind of expecting that on the team side of it. Operationally, it's thinking about how you can incorporate AI tools into your workforce. We're probably on we're on the edge of just using it for some basic things right now.
Right.
But people using it for analytics, people using it for insights and getting better strategically on where they invest their time and their team is what I imagine will be a big thing next year too.
That's fantastic. And I loved what you talked about user-centric or user-focused content, because, no matter what goes on with technology, I think that at the end of the day, it's all about the customer. It's all about the client. And it's all about what makes their lives better, right? And so, one of the things that really intrigues me about what you're doing at Perforce is this sort of partner-led content marketing, right? I was wondering if you could explain this a little bit, because this is the first time I've heard about it. I'm, really intrigued as to what this means and how it's actually affecting your marketing performance at Perforce.
Yeah, for sure. So having a kind of network-led model has been something I've had and developed over the years, and have taken that to a few companies and seen success with it. I really look at content, just defining what that network-led model is. I look at content in two spheres, right? You have this keyword-led model where you're looking at, how am I going to rank for a specific term? How am I going to provide awareness to people searching these terms about my product and how I can serve them? And then the network-led approach is where I look at it in terms of like, what's your network? What's your relationship? What is your community that you have online, and how can you broadcast that message to them? Central to that is just thinking like people to people. People want to hear from somebody like you, like title-wise, age-wise, demographic-wise. So I really put a lot of thought into aligning, this message is for its director, it needs a director level byline. This message is for an engineer, it needs an engineer level byline. And having that persona kind of show through to say, like, to give that trust right away. And then that helps translate this stuff to social, because that engineer is sharing it to his engineer peers, and vice versa. So that's really something that I've had and developed and honed. I think here at Perforce, I've taken that a little step further in terms of making sure the content I do that is network-led is closer to the funnel. Like, it's a lot of effort to involve other people in the development of content.
Mm-hmm.
So getting that byline from the director, getting that byline from a senior leader, or getting that byline from an engineer, it's harder to put together than just, our marketing writers could do alone. And what I've looked at doing now too is, as that's going into the bottom of the funnel, how can I do this with customers, where like I'm partnering with them to tell a story? So, you can think of guest blogs and things like that, but I'm not just looking at blogs, I'm looking at a video.
Right.
If I'm going to be closer to the funnel, how can I put that into a case study? How can I put that into a video? How can I put that into some technical content that is showing somebody how to use a workflow? So this even becomes like, that evaluation step, or that step two, like, well, they already have it, they're already doing it, I want to be like them. So that's really where I've kind of focused that energy, and that's been really successful. And then the other layer of it that you're talking to, I did a talk at the AMA Pittsburgh, and that was on this partner marketing part of it. So
right.
That's where, we're a big company, and the partners don't have to be those. Partners can be other technologies that are used in a workflow. So what I was able to do is just find some other technology peers. We're all being used, but they're adjacent technology providers. They're not competitive to us. Now it's like I got multiple marketing teams working together, and we're telling the story. We're utilizing our databases. We're utilizing our perspectives, and then able to go to market with either a joint customer case study or just providing multiple perspectives on a topic or a theme.
Oh, that's really cool. I think one of the things that really jumped out about what you said was in, kind of getting back to the sort of like more of the bottom of the funnel. And I was actually having a conversation with a colleague of mine earlier today, as a matter of fact, coincidentally, about the bottom of the funnel and how creating content at the bottom of the funnel can actually even help with top of the funnel stuff. And I'm just wondering, what was your thinking behind, starting at the bottom of the funnel with content that's like, case studies or even videos and articles, etc. And how does that inform what you're doing throughout the rest of the funnel? And then I want to ask you later on about how technology features into this, since this is a conversation about MarTech eventually. But yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to proving value, right? We all have to, unless you're the senior CMO or leader, like you got to prove business value and ROI and look at that. So with the teams I've managed, it's just coming down to efficiency and amount of resources that it takes to pull things off. So that's where, like, I can't have a lot of frequency. I can't have a lot of high volume for network-led content or content that's developed with a customer or partner. So I can't just make a blog out of it, right? I have to make sure this is something that is multifaceted, and proves the most value, not just like the keyword rankings or organic traffic, but like, how can I show that it's gotten MQLs? How can I show that it's generating pipeline? So that's where I look at those stories as like foundational being like a webinar, or foundational being some kind of content type like that, where I am, now that I'm investing in doing this with some groups, I'm able to use that network kind of model.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the more people I bring and feature in this webinar is the more audience and network that I'm going to be able to grow, because each of those people are going to have their own platform to share and a platform of peers. So that's really been the shift for me this year. And then thinking there too, I got a ton of stuff in that content. Now, if we recorded a webinar, hour interview, right, we're going to have testimonials in there. We're going to have things I can build infographics out of. We're going to have things I could do a blog or a case study on. So those become a foundation to like build other content types. And I'm a big proponent of, you know, building multiple content types. Like, everybody likes to have their own preference. So if you're giving people multiple ways to consume a content and a way to consume it in their preferred way, then you're going to win.
Yeah, because people, you know, some people learn better with reading, or some people learn better. They're more visual learners. Some are more kinesthetic. So I think that what you're doing is you're catering to these different learning styles, these different content consumption styles, with the being able to repurpose the content into different content types, different formats.
And in my role as well, like, it's, you know, the persona changes too. So I think I can make a win story to show to my enablement meetings for my sales teams to be aware of things. I can make slides to show maybe an executive that I'm going to be presenting to in a meeting. And so these are all things where, like, with the customer story at a foundation, you really can, you know, add all those features because you know enough in depth about the topic and the use case.
Yeah. So this sounds very kind of like a complex machine, if you will. How are you organizing all the different bits and pieces of all this, you know, the content for different parts of the funnel, for the different personas? You know, you talked about sales enablement, you talked about a deck for executives. Is there a type of technology that you use to organize this? You know, like, are you using any type of a mind map or something? Or, you know, tell me, how do you keep a handle on getting this organized without pulling your hair out?
I think I try to have some general guidelines and general, like, things we're going to make, but I also have to leave some room for, like, organic development, and also leave some room to, like, see success. Like, let's see how that webinar does, right? Does it get a lot of audience? If it does, then, like, I know that's like, hey, lots of people are interested in it. I want to make more content types from it. But if it's not, then, like, you know, I could kind of cut my losses and don't have to develop all those things. So I think it's like not planning it all ahead, but getting some feedback loops in it and getting some data feedback loops to help guide that. And then that's where you can start to see, like, how far you can take that content and how much more you can distribute it. And I think, like you said earlier, there's an engine to it. And that's where, when you do find things that are successful, like, make sure you have a redistribution plan, recirculate that stuff again. Because there's always going to be new people looking at our channel, new people entering the field, new people experimenting or getting curiosity around these tools and technologies that we work with. So that's kind of how I look at it from that perspective.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now, your particular role is, like I said, in product marketing, and you're really part of the leading the strategy for content. But the people at Perforce who are managing the MarTech stack, that's a different department. But I know that, so since it's given that it is a different department, I was learning to what extent you can speak to kind of like your marketing tech stack, and how it feeds into the different parts of your content marketing plan.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a good bunch of tools, good tech stack that you can rely on. and something that works for, the different roles across your team. For our writers, we're using Bright Edge. So that's like our SEO tool, so just have one of those, right? That's going to be either Ahrefs or SEMrush. Those are some popular ones as well. But just some way to get insights on what people are searching. You need that, right? You can't just take a guess that people are doing this or take some hunches. You need that to prioritize what you're going to go after and to also find where your competitors might be, also find where they're doing so that you can make strategies based on that. So that's really key for our space that I can speak to. I know our writers are using an SEO tool called Bright Edge. So, you definitely need one of that as part of your workflow. You need that for research. You need that to see base priorities off of, like get some actual data points on. Is the term increasing in search volume, decreasing in search volume? Is this term something where your competitors are at? And, I use that too for business decisions and strategies too, and not just for thinking about what blog I'm going to write. Right. So those kind of insights are key to find and look at. And that's one area. I think another one we look at is, right, we have Sixth Sense. So, we look at that to get signals on like what kind of content are people that do, become cookied or become MQL'd, like what's their journey look like?
Yeah, what brought them to you? What brought them
to us? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like what content did they read? What content did they consume before they like filled out that form? And that tells us a lot too. And those things help, give me signals on like, I got to put this white paper in more places, or I got to put this webinar in more places, because that influenced a decision. So those are key. We're using Salesforce with our sales teams. Our team has a very strong motion to like keep that very, I guess, rich in data. So like the conversations, the emails they're sending, the way opportunities are turning in and out, like, and how they're maturing and growing in probability with each stage. So I think those things are all key too. That's helpful for me to look at when I have some time to go look at meetings coming up and seeing potential customers there. It gives me a signal to be like, I want to hop in that meeting or get a recording of that meeting, because that will be insightful for me, because I want to see how my messaging is resonating. I want to see how the way we're presenting stuff is resonating with people. So that's a good feedback loop for me. And I think that's the key about like all these technologies, is just giving those different departments the feedback loops they need to tune, iterate, optimize. And those are some of the top ones off the top of my head that we're using.
Yeah. So, it also really sounds like as though you're not letting technology get in the way, because I remember I was listening to a recent podcast of the This Old Marketing podcast with Joe Polizzi and Robert Rose, where they're talking about how time and time again they come across large companies that kind of get stuck in this implementation or that implementation, or they're replacing Marketo with Pardot, or they're doing this and that and the other, and they kind of don't ever seem to be implementing the marketing and doing the marketing. They're just kind of tweaking the MarTech stack. And it seems like as though what you're doing is that you've really found a way to create this content at the bottom of the funnel, and then you're using it to repurpose depending on the persona, depending on the thing, on the position within the sales funnel. And you're not letting technology get in the way. In fact, technology for you is a way of providing you feedback, right? So it's putting the content out there, then the feedback comes back to you, then you tweak it and you go back out there, and it's sort of like an iteration, sort of like you're constantly improving what you're already doing. I was wondering if that was kind of a conscious effort on your part, or did that just kind of happen organically? Or tell me about that.
Yeah, I think, very data minded, right? I kind of bring that to the fold of all my decisions, and, not just base things off, singular opinions or groups of opinions, but try to get some data around it. So that's just kind of how I'm geared. I'm traditionally an engineer before marketing. So that's always been a guide for me. But I think what you spoke to as well, like, you can't get caught up in taking too long to put these technologies and integrating them into your workflow, right? That's really key. And I think you can't overestimate like the cost of doing that or not having a specialist do that for you, right? Because if you need a shorter time to like start seeing those insights, and the longer that stuff takes to set up, whether you're in a migration or you're trying to set these things up, or you're trying to set up your tech stack to give those kind of signals, the whole team is losing out. And so investing in specialists there and making sure that, that time to market for those insights and that structure for that feedback loop is set is super valuable. And, that's one of the things I'm looking at too when I'm getting on a team, is just trying to see what data we know, what data we don't know, and how can we kind of operate in that atmosphere the quickest and, gain any improvements that are, especially needed if there's any gaps.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So, I wanted to get into a little bit about the, how you came up with this network-led marketing approach, because I think it's very unique. I just don't see a lot of companies doing this. I know that at Martechify we do kind of a version of that, but how did you stumble into this about the network-led content marketing approach?
I think it kind of just developed organically, but a pain point I did see at the companies I've been at is just trying to measure the value of content and trying to need some way to structure it and trying to need some way to prioritize what types of content you're going to create. So, and then what I've usually seen is people I have a strong SEO, at least for the technology companies I work for. I have a strong SEO function, we got these keywords, we got this stuff, we got this history. But then looking at it from an outside perspective as I'm joining the company, and from a human perspective, being there's content types missing. And how do I structure or define those? So I think looking at that's where, I came up with that network-led kind of model, by looking at how do we get to what a consumer wants, especially because, usually at the companies I've been at, right, I got success in one industry, but now I'm trying to grow that success into either another industry or another audience. And what's key there is growing that from a person's base. So you're going to have that I need other people in that field that aren't me, that have some recognition in that field to share my message. And so that's really where, a lot of that person-to-person things come as well. If I bylining this with somebody in the auto field, or they're a guest on my webinar or podcast, you're going to watch it, and that'll be your introduction to me. So I need somebody to give me a warm intro.
Yeah.
And I think that helps too. Just think about when I frame this, right, I have to do presentations to get review on my content strategy. So that's helped me kind of think of a model that's worked for it. And I think of it too, it falls into the bucket of you're getting content that finds the person you want. As when I'm looking at LinkedIn or looking at content today, I'm not searching a lot of stuff. I'm looking through my feed on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that's connecting me to the content I want to see. And that's the way people have adapted, their content consumption types. So I think that fits that too. A lot of that stuff has changed. And so that's where that model kind of hits it, because you're getting that warm intro some way through a model.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's really fascinating, especially about you're looking at the feed, and the content that you want to see is coming to you. You don't have to search for it.
Sure,
obviously
that's what you want, and that's what we expect, right? That's how we've changed, and those media types, the platforms, social media feeds, all this stuff changes, but what hasn't changed is human behavior. And anybody wants to read something that's timely, from a unique perspective, sounds like it's or is from an authority and is uniquely informed. So if you start just thinking of it that way and like, how can I deliver that or associate with somebody who has that in the space I want to reach, you're going to find success.
Yeah. So you just mentioned how do I associate with myself with somebody who's in the space that you want to reach, and kind of joining that together with the network-led content approach. It seems like as though what you're doing is a very organic approach to content marketing. I'm just wondering if you also integrate into this some sort of a paid promotion component to your content marketing, or is it all this organic, I'm partnering with this person that has this particular audience, and so I'm getting exposed to them or what have you?
It's a bit of both, but I think I start with, again, start with the concept, start with the customer-centered concept, see what kind of legs you get at some first basis. If it's successful, start developing more content types for it. If that's successful, then I start to have the elements I need to do a paid promotion or know it's going to be worth the paid promotion and investment. So I think, again, it's just about getting those signals, knowing, hey, I got a winning piece of content here, and then being able to double down on that or, stack your cards on it because you've seen the success it's already brought you.
Yeah. So you said start with a concept. Is the concept informed by some of these feedback signals that you get when you've already shared content out there and through the analytical tools that you have? Or can the concept also come with some, like maybe a good idea? Maybe somebody has a hypothesis that this is going to work, somebody on your team, and then you start with that concept. How do you approach coming up with a concept, a content concept?
Yeah, I have a regular weekly writing team meeting, and so I keep that open. I like to keep it like a newsroom where we can talk about ideas and
I was going to say newsroom. That sounds very much like a newsroom. Yeah.
And it's open that way. And
so, Chris, you just mentioned the aspect of coming up with a concept as sort of like the seed for how you're going to approach a particular content approach. So how do you come up with these concepts? Is it as a result of some of the content signals that your analytical tools will come back to, some of the positive signals, or is it an idea? Does somebody come up with an idea or a hypothesis for a concept that you just want to test the waters on out there in the world?
Yeah, I like to have a place where people can build hypotheses, have guesses, have discussions. Like I think that's where ideas are founded. I have a weekly writing team meeting where kind of run it like a newsroom and just like what news is out there that we've heard, what conversations gave us some ideas, what research have we done that gave us ideas, and so those are things where we'll put thoughts down, but then after that I kind of have it in idea, read something worth researching, review, or something we just shoot down being like, we kind of did that before. So it's just those kind of things that we can look at. And then that research review stage is we're like, okay, this has some legs. It looks like it sounds good here in this room. Like, now let's go, use a tool like Bright Edge or do some more research on it and see if that's making it feel like even more of a reason to do it. And then through those stages too, that's where we start to develop it more. And is it going to be, what kind of content is it going to be? Is it going to be a video, something we need to make a post about just for social, or is it going to be a blog or some other kind of need? So I kind of build that from there. And again, I think about it as terms of that's the first content piece we're going to make, because we might make more based on success or reach we've got from it.
So in terms of ideation, have you, and this is where I want to talk about getting back to the original question about, trends you're seeing for 2025, and particularly for Perforce and the use of AI. I mean, how are you planning to use AI without giving away any kind of secrets or any spoilers or whatever, but how are you planning to use and incorporate AI into Perforce's content marketing, within the next 6 to 12 months?
Sure. I mean, the way we're using it now is, I'd love to hear ideas from anybody watching this on what you're using, what you found success with. What we're doing is pretty on the operational side, like using it for the more straightforward things, like summarizing a video that we produce, summarizing other content that we've made so that we can create those other content types. Like that's a way to get a shortcut. Using it to help, develop some of the content briefs and things like that we create. And those are things that my team sends to me. Like that's kind of what I'll review before, we start developing it more. So those things are where we're at now. What I haven't looked at that's interesting is probably like, what is AI like for in some of these analytic realms? What could AI help tell me in terms of, I guess, topics and themes that we could go after next year based off, markets we want to hit and based off the content and portfolio we have today. That's something interesting to look at. I imagine that's where some people are going or already are. But that's kind of what's on my radar.
Oh, that's really cool. That's interesting that you talk about, topic ideas, and, ideation, because I think there's a friend of mine, saw him speak at a meetup recently. He talked about how he created a custom GPT that helps him to bounce ideas off of him. So he talks to him as if this person is a mentor, right?
Yeah.
And what he did was...
I see some of my people on my team use it like that. And that's neat. Like I see them, give me more developed thoughts and marketing ideas from that, because I can tell they're, having that chat and, having that companion to kind of develop things like, here's the audience I'm thinking about, here's this, like all that stuff becomes more nuanced because they're having these dialogues with somebody they weren't able to as often.
All right, perfect. Well, before we conclude this fascinating interview, Chris, I was just wondering if there's anything that's kind of like top of mind for you right now, something that's sort of keeping you awake at night, or something that you kind of want to tell the world about, or maybe something that I should have asked you that I didn't ask that you'd kind of like to share with the watchers, the listeners, the readers of Martechify.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. We're in planning mode, so kind of everything's on the table for me for what we're going to do next year and what we're going to build on. But we've had a lot of success with these partnerships and that kind of model I spoke to. So we're going to be investing more in doing that and looking at growing that. Looking at developing more relationships and more partners in the industries that we're going to be a part of next year. I think one thing to point out is, I spoke a lot about content types, but I've done this for events too. So don't just think of it as like content on the web.
Yeah.
I've had events with partners. Those events have, brought in the audiences we need to them, and of course, right, we're developing content for those audiences to consume in terms of slides or presentations. But that's another way to extend it. You're looking for partners that can help complement you and complement your team, and how you can go to some event like that and be more than you are singularly. So that's something that resonates with me. I think it resonates with a lot of people in today's time, and that's something I'd encourage you to look at.
Yeah, events. I think I really think events are coming back with a vengeance. Since COVID, I think after COVID, people events really took a long time to kind of come back, but I think it's really coming back now with a vengeance. And I think like what you're doing, everybody needs to start considering how they're going to incorporate in-person physical events into their content marketing mix. And yeah, and I think getting back to the partner marketing and the network and the network content approach, it's in another, again, I'm hearkening back to an episode of This Old Marketing with Joe Polizzi and Robert Rose. Joe Polizzi talked about who's you're with. Whenever you do content nowadays, think about who you're doing this with, and you are like totally embodying this because you're doing it with the people who resonate with your target audience. being a very customer focused person yourself when it comes to content marketing. So
I think that's a great guideline. I haven't seen that specifically, but yeah, that aligns with my thought process and mindset. Who are you going to develop with? People don't just want to hear from a brand; they want to hear from people. People don't just want to hear about a product; they want to hear about a use case, and people want to hear about a project. So I think about those ways to tell a story are really powerful, and more powerful than some ways that we can kind of do based off historical or traditional influences.
Chris, I think you just gave me my favorite quote of this interview. What you just said. Yeah, people don't want to hear from brands. They want to hear from people. They don't want to hear about products. They want to hear about projects, etc. That's the quote of this interview.
Love it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, great. How can people find you online if they want to ask you questions or if they want to find out about Perforce, which is, I think it's a DevOps platform, right?
Yeah, Perforce is a large portfolio company. So we have 18 products that are in the DevOps space. So if you're in the sector of testing, IT administration, version control, lots of areas, you'll look for us. So check us out. For me specifically, there's a lot of Chris Perez's. I'm on LinkedIn, but look up Chris Perez Perforce if you want to find me, or look up Chris Left Right. That's the URL for my LinkedIn, and that's
Chris
the platform
Left
I
Right.
use the most. Yep.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Chris. This has been really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing of your valuable time with us and with the Martechify audience. And we will see you all next time in another great Martechify interview. Bye for now.
Awesome. Thank you so much.